I was sweeping the front porch when I saw him for the first time. A young man, tall and lean backpack slung over one shoulder, jogging across the street with that casual energy only youth can carry. He waved politely when our eyes met, and I returned it with a small nod. He must have just moved in across the way, house number 84. A rental, I thought. I hadn't seen that porch light on in months. 2 days later, I was trimming my roses when I heard a voice behind me. "Excuse me, Grandma. Do you need help with that?" I turned slowly. He was smiling, earnest, friendly. But I froze at that one word, Grandma. "Excuse me," I asked, raising a brow. "Oh, I didn't mean... I just thought," he fumbled, his face turning red. I laughed, not out of offense, but because I hadn't been called that by anyone but my grandkids. And even they didn't do it with that mix of awkward sweetness. "It's Mrs. Kavanaugh," I said, still smiling. "But thank you for the offer." He introduced himself, Eli. 26, just out of the military, renting while figuring out what to do next. From then on, I'd see him often, watering his lawn, carrying groceries, jogging past with his earbuds in. He always waved. Sometimes he'd stop and talk. At first, it was small talk weather, the barking dog 2 doors down. Then came the deeper chats, his dreams, his regrets, and the pain of coming back to a world that felt too fast and too empty. And me, I told him about my late husband, my quiet afternoons, the way my hands ached when it rained. It was strange, easy, natural. He was 26, I was 71. But somehow the porch steps between us didn't feel like a chasm. They felt like a bridge, and neither of us knew it then. But this was the beginning of something no one would understand. Not yet. It started with leftovers. One evening, I was making baked chicken and sweet potatoes, more than I could eat as always. I saw him sitting alone on his porch, scrolling on his phone, the blue light from the screen, painting his face in a kind of loneliness I recognized too well. I called out, half-joking, "Hope you're not surviving on takeout again." He looked up startled, then smiled. "I'm surviving. Barely. Come eat, I made too much." He hesitated, then crossed the street. That first dinner was light, easy laughter, compliments on my cooking, and stories about how bad military base food had been. He ate like he hadn't tasted real food in years. Maybe he hadn't. The next night, he showed up with a pie from the grocery store. "Trade," he said. "Dessert for dinner." After that, it became a rhythm. Some nights we'd talk for hours about music, childhood regrets. Other nights, we barely said a word. He'd just sit on the couch sometimes reading, sometimes just listening to the radio while I knit in silence. And strangely, that silence felt full. Not empty, not awkward. It felt like trust. One evening, after we finished dinner, and I handed him a second helping like a stubborn grandmother, he smirked. "You're really spoiling me, Grandma." There it was again. I raised an eyebrow, and he blushed. "Sorry, force of habit. You remind me of mine, but also not." "How so?" I asked. "Well, you're softer, but sharper. You have this way of cutting through all the noise." "My grandma was mean," he added, grinning. I chuckled. "So I'm a kind grandma upgrade." "Not quite," he said, suddenly serious. "You're something else." I didn't know what to make of it. Just smiled and handed him a slice of pie. But that night after he left, I sat alone in the living room staring at the empty chair he'd been in. I told myself he was just lonely, that I was just a neighbor, a comfort, a safe place. But something inside me whispered a warning. Or was it a possibility? Either way, something was shifting. It was Margaret who said it first. We were sipping iced tea on my patio, watching the birds flit around the feeder like they had something urgent to say. "So," she said casually, eyes not leaving her glass. "How's your young neighbor?" I gave her a look. "Fine. Fine, as in he's still coming over every night for dinner. Fine or fine, as in you're trying not to blush when you say his name. Fine." I laughed, a little too quickly. "It's not like that," I said. "He's just lonely. He talks. I listen, that's all." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Mm-hmm. And how often does he come over now? Couple times a week?" She tilted her head. "Couple," I sighed, "every night." She leaned back in her chair, folded her arms. "Addie, are you sure you're not the one who's lonely?" The question stung more than it should have, but it stayed with me even after she left. Even as I washed the dishes that night. Even as Eli walked in with his usual "smells amazing, Grandma," I smiled, but something inside had shifted. Was I filling a hole he didn't ask me to fill? Was I pretending his visits meant more than they did? I started noticing things. The way he always brought his phone, but never looked at it when we were together. The way he lingered in the doorway after dinner, like he didn't want to leave but didn't know how to say it. One night, I asked him directly, "Do your friends know you come here?" He hesitated a couple. "And what do they say?" He shrugged. "They don't get it." "Do you?" He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "You make me feel like I exist, like I'm not just passing through." I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because how do you respond when a 26-year-old says the very thing you've been feeling too? I went to bed that night and stared at the ceiling for hours. I wasn't afraid of falling for him. I was afraid. I already had. It was raining. Not the soft kind of rain that makes you want to curl up with a book, but the wild wind-thrashing, memory-stirring kind. The kind that makes the world feel a little too big and a little too quiet. The power flickered twice that evening. I had lit candles just in case. I didn't expect Eli to come. But at 7:02 there, he was soaked, hoodie-dripping eyes wide with apology. "I didn't want you to be alone in the dark," he said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. I handed him a towel. "You're the one who's wet and freezing." He smiled. "I'll survive." We sat in the living room candlelight, casting flickering shadows on the walls. I made us tea, and we talked in hushed voices like the rain might be listening. He told me about a friend from deployment who had taken his own life, how he sometimes felt like he was still out there in the desert, stuck between worlds. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I just sat there with my hands around the mug, letting the pain settle between us like fog. And then it happened. He reached out gently and placed his hand over mine. No words, no fanfare, just skin to skin. Warm, solid, real. I didn't pull away. I should have. I knew it. But I didn't. Because that touch wasn't romantic. Not yet. It was human. It said, "You matter." It said, "I'm here." It said all the things we were too afraid to speak out loud. I looked up and his eyes were already on me. Not like a boy looking at a grandmother. Not even like a man looking at a woman. He looked at me like I was something sacred. Like I was safe. My breath caught. My heart, a thing I thought had gone dormant years ago, stirred. And suddenly the storm outside wasn't the only one I had to weather. Because now something had been set in motion. And there would be no going back. She showed up unannounced. It was a Sunday afternoon, and Eli had just left after helping me rearrange the bookshelf. We'd spent the morning laughing over which books I'd stubbornly refused to throw away. He called my romance novels vintage love manuals. I swatted him with one. Then, barely 10 minutes after he left, I heard the knock. It wasn't polite, it was sharp, angry. "Claire." My daughter, she stood in the doorway like a storm in heels, arms crossed lips, pursed eyes, already judging before I could say a word. "Is it true?" she snapped. I blinked. "Is what true?" She stepped inside without asking. "That there's a boy coming here every night. That you're feeding him, talking to him. That he calls you grandma." I shut the door behind her slowly. "You've been talking to Margaret. She's worried about you," Claire hissed. "And so am I." "Mom, what is going on? Are you losing your mind?" There it was. Not concern, control. I took a deep breath. Eli is not just some boy. He's a good man. He helps me. He listens. What? She interrupted. "He comforts you. Fills the silence now that Dad's gone." "Is that what this is?" Her voice cracked on the last word. I felt it like a slap. "It's not like that," I said softer now. "We're just close." She scoffed. "Close, he's 26. You're old enough to be his grandmother." "Yes," I said, meeting her eyes, and he still looks at me like I matter. Silence. A long, brutal silence. Then she shook her head. "You have to stop this. Before people start talking. Before it gets out of hand." I felt something shift in me then. A line drawn. "I'm 71, Claire," I said quietly. "Do you know how many things I've done out of fear of what people would say? How many years I spent living politely instead of fully?" She didn't answer. I walked over to the window. The sky was clear now, the rain long gone. "I'm not asking for your blessing," I said. "But I won't ask for your permission either." She left without saying goodbye. And I stood there alone, heart-pounding legs trembling, not because I was uncertain, but because I had finally told the truth. It was a Wednesday. One of those quiet, unremarkable days where nothing seems to happen until everything does. Eli had been helping me clean out the attic. Dusty boxes, forgotten memories, decades packed into taped-up corners. We found my late husband's old fishing hat, a photo album from when Claire was still in pigtails, and an unopened letter addressed to the future me. I didn't remember writing it. We laughed, we coughed, we sneezed through the dust, and then we sat on the floor surrounded by the wreckage of the past, just breathing. That's when he said it. I love you. Just like that. No build-up, no dramatic music, just words bare and fragile falling into the silence like stones into still water. I laughed, not because it was funny, not because I didn't believe him, but because it felt impossible. You don't, I said gently. You think you do. But I'm not your age. I'm not your future. He didn't blink. You're more than that, he said. You're the first person who ever made me feel like I wasn't broken. Like I wasn't just a body with a past. I looked away. My heart was doing strange things again, fluttering, aching, hoping. You don't know what it's like to love someone who might leave you just because time says they must, I whispered. He leaned closer. No, he said. But I know what it's like to lose years of your life to war, to pain, to silence. I don't want to lose more to fear. I felt something inside me crack open. Like a door I had locked years ago. A door labeled too late. I don't know how to do this, I confessed. He smiled. Neither do I. Let's figure it out together. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch. We just sat there shoulder to shoulder as the afternoon light filtered through the attic window. And for the first time since I was a girl, I let the words stay. I didn't push them away. I didn't erase them with reason. I let them live. He loved me. And slowly, quietly, I was starting to love him back. I had made up my mind. That evening, I lit candles in the living room, not for atmosphere, but for courage. The soft glow flickered on the framed photos of a life I thought had already been lived. A marriage, a family, a quiet widowhood that was supposed to drift gently toward the end. Then Eli walked in. He had flowers. Lily's my favorite, though I never told him that. He just knew. I smiled, but my chest felt tight. My stomach ached like I had swallowed a secret too big to hold. We ate dinner, talked about nothing, the weather, a movie he'd watched, a book I had half read 3 times. And when he reached for my hand like he always did, I pulled away. He noticed immediately. What's wrong? He asked. I swallowed. We need to talk. He sat up straighter, his expression changing. I can't do this anymore, Eli, I said carefully, like each word was a piece of glass. He blinked. Do what? This, us? It's not right. He leaned forward. Not right for who? For anyone, I said. For my daughter. For your future. For the world that sees us and doesn't know what the hell to do with it. He stared at me like I'd grown horns. You care what they think now. I care about you, I said, voice rising. I care about what this could cost you. I already lost years of my life, he said, standing now. I'm not losing you just to make other people comfortable. I shook my head. I don't want to be a lesson you regret. A chapter you outgrow. He took a step closer. You're not a chapter, Adeline. You're the book. I turned away. I couldn't look at him. Not like that. He was young, handsome, full of years I could never match. I was old. I ached. I forgot things. I lived half in the past. And yet, he came closer. You want me to leave, he whispered. I nodded, though my whole body screamed no. He stood still, just for a moment. Then he said something that broke me. I'm not going anywhere. Not until you look me in the eye and tell me you don't feel the same. Silence. The clock ticked. I turned. Our eyes met. And I couldn't say it. Because I did feel it. Every terrifying, beautiful inch of it. He saw it. And he stayed. He stayed. It happened on a Sunday morning. Eli and I had gone for a walk just around the neighborhood. The sky was soft with the colors of spring, and he held my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. We weren't doing anything scandalous, no kisses, no touching beyond the gentle interlace of fingers. But when you're 71 and he's 26, even a walk can become a headline. I saw the curtain twitch before we turned the corner. 2 houses down, Margaret's place. I knew that curtain. And I knew that Margaret didn't just see us. By evening, the phone rang. Addie, her voice came through like ice in tea people are starting to talk. They saw you. with him. I closed my eyes. Let them talk. They're saying he's your grandson. And if he's not, well, then it's even worse, isn't it? I hung up before I said something I'd regret. Then came Claire. She stormed in 2 days later. No knock, just fury. You told me you ended it. I tried, I said, and he didn't let me. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Mom, do you know what people are saying? Do you even care what this is doing to your reputation? To mine. And then she saw it. A photo on the hallway table. Me and Eli. Smiling. Real smiles. I was laughing, head thrown back, eyes alive. Claire picked it up. Did he put you up to this? Is this a scam? Are you sick? No, I said, my voice firm now. I'm in love. She flinched like I'd slapped her. Yeah? You're what? In love, Claire. Not confused, not manipulated, not desperate, just finally alive. She stood frozen, the photo trembling in her hands. Then she dropped it. The frame shattered on the hardwood floor. She left without another word. I sat on the couch for hours after that, staring at the shards. At the faces frozen in glass, now cracked. And I realized, love doesn't always come gently. Sometimes it tears the seams of your life wide open. And when it does, you have to decide, hide it or let it burn. It wasn't meant to be public. Eli had taken the photo one quiet morning. I was sitting in the garden wearing a wide-brimmed hat and smiling at nothing in particular. He stood behind me, snapped the shot with his phone, and whispered, "This is how I always see you." Later that night, he posted it. No big announcement, no romantic caption. Just, some people make you believe in life again. He didn't tag me. He didn't even use hashtags. But the internet always finds what it wants to devour. Within 48 hours, it had been reposted to a gossip forum. Then Reddit. Then a Twitter account called Strange Love. The comments poured in. This has to be fake. He's clearly using her. Imagine being this desperate for attention at 70. MILF number grand MILF. He's a hero for taking care of his grandma like that. This is disturbing. There should be laws against this. And then came the DMs. Hundreds of them. Some sympathetic, most cruel, a few threatening. Hope you enjoy his company. He'll be spending your money soon enough. Shouldn't you be knitting or in a nursing home? I'd give it 6 months before he finds someone with less wrinkles. I sat alone in the dark, scrolling and crying. Not because they were right, but because part of me still believed them. The shame curled around me like smoke, thick and poisonous. Then Eli walked in. He saw the screen. He didn't speak. Just knelt beside me, took the phone, and turned it off. "You don't owe them your peace," he said. "I thought I could handle it," I whispered. "But maybe they're right. Maybe I should have let this be a memory." He looked at me, eyes burning. "You think I'm here out of pity that I fell in love with your age? No, I fell in love with your soul, and they can't touch that." I wanted to believe him, but my hands trembled with a fear older than the internet. Older than gossip. The fear of being seen in all your vulnerability and rejected. That night, I didn't sleep. But I wrote a letter. To myself. To every woman who ever thought love had an expiration date. And I ended it with this. They saw a photo. But they didn't see the days, the dinners, the quiet courage. And that's okay. Because I did. It was just a dizzy spell. That's what I told myself. I had skipped breakfast, spent too much time standing in the garden under the sun, and the stress from all the online noise hadn't exactly helped. One moment I was pruning the roses, and the next, the world spun. I woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the soft beeping of a heart monitor. My throat was dry, my head pounding, but I knew exactly where I was. The hospital. I blinked, adjusting to the cold white ceiling, the sterile light. Then I heard it, his voice. Soft, cracked, close. "You're awake." I turned my head. There he was, Eli. Sitting by my side, eyes red-rimmed, a paper coffee cup in his hand, and something unreadable in his expression, like fear had taken root in him and hadn't yet let go. "You scared the hell out of me," he whispered. I tried to smile. Did I mess up the garden? He shook his head and let out a shaky laugh. "You collapsed, Addie. You hit your head on the stones. You were out for 5 minutes." I didn't respond. I just reached for his hand. He took it instantly. The doctor came in soon after. Mild dehydration, low blood pressure, exhaustion. "Your body's not 20 anymore," he said kindly. "But it's still strong. With rest, you'll be okay." When he left, I looked at Eli and said, maybe Claire was right. His face hardened. No, I'm not saying she's right about us. But maybe I am selfish. Maybe I didn't think about what it would do to you, having to take care of someone who— Stop, he interrupted, voice firm now. Stop trying to leave before you're gone. I blinked. People leave all the time, he said. They leave with full health, with perfect timing, with no warning. I don't care if I have 1 year with you or 30, I want whatever I can have. You don't get to decide for me. My eyes welled up. I don't want to be a burden. You're not, he said. You're my choice. And in that moment I knew. This wasn't a fantasy. This wasn't delusion. This was a man who loved me beyond logic, beyond expectation, beyond fear. And when I closed my eyes again, I didn't feel weak. I felt held, because I didn't wake up alone. And maybe, just maybe, I never would be again. It was 2 days after I got home from the hospital. The bruises on my cheek had started to fade, but the ache in my ribs lingered. Still, I was grateful to be home, my home. Familiar walls, my tea, my garden wild and unbothered. Eli had been by my side every step. And then, like a storm on a cloudless day, Claire returned. I heard her car door slam from the kitchen window. A few seconds later, her knock sharp and urgent. Eli opened the door before I could. They stared at each other for a moment. She didn't say hello. I need to speak to my mother, she said, brushing past him. I was in the living room wrapped in a blanket mug in hand. Hi, sweetheart, I offered gently. She didn't sit, didn't smile. I spoke to an attorney, she said. I blinked. What for? You collapsed, she snapped. You were unconscious. You could have died. And this situation is getting out of control. It's time we talked about your affairs. I sat up a little straighter. My affairs, your estate, your will, your finances. You've been under stress, and frankly, I think your judgment is compromised. People are talking, Mom. They think this boy is using you, that he's manipulating you. Eli stood at the doorway silent, watching. Claire continued, I'm filing for temporary conservatorship. I set the mug down. You want control over my life. I want to protect you. No, I said, my voice steel now. You want to control me, just like Dad did. Just like you always have. You think love stops when you hit 70, but I've never felt more alive. She faltered. Mom, I stood up slowly but firmly. Did you come here to help me or to erase me? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at Eli. If you care about her, you'll walk away. He met her gaze calm and steady. I'm not here to take anything he said. I'm here because I love her. You don't have to understand it, but you will have to accept it. The room was silent. Then Claire turned back to me. You're going to regret this, she whispered. I nodded. Maybe, but at least this time it'll be my regret. She left, didn't look back. Eli walked over and knelt beside me. Are you okay? I laughed, though my eyes were wet. Not even close, but I'm free. It wasn't a grand proposal. There was no candlelight dinner, no diamond ring hidden in a dessert, no down-on-one-knee theatrics. It happened on a Tuesday morning. We were folding laundry. Eli held up one of my sweaters, soft blue, a little frayed around the cuffs, and said, You wear this one a lot. I smiled. It's older than you. He looked at me, then really looked at me. I want to do this forever, he said. I laughed. What fold laundry? No, he whispered. Us, this, you, me. Even the socks that never match. I froze the towel half folded in my hands. You don't have to say it right now, he added quickly. But I've thought about it. A lot. I don't care about the noise. I just want to call you mine. For real. I set the towel down. I already am yours, I said softly. But if you're asking what I think you are, he nodded. Then yes. He smiled like a sunrise. No fanfare, just warmth. Steady and full. We didn't tell anyone. Not Claire, not Margaret, not even my grandson who'd started calling more regularly lately. We wanted it to be ours, not a statement, not a rebellion, not an internet headline. Just a choice. Two people choosing each other in a world that never would have picked us to begin with. We went to the courthouse 2 weeks later. Simple dresses, a borrowed suit. We signed papers, exchanged vows, and kissed outside under the old oak tree near the parking lot. A stranger clapped for us. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need a big audience to feel seen. Eli looked at me like I was everything. And maybe I was. Not because I was young, not because I was perfect, but because I was present, heart, soul, scars and all. We didn't post the photos. We didn't throw a party. But that night we danced barefoot in the kitchen to an old jazz record. And it was the most beautiful wedding reception I'd ever known. We didn't plan for it to get out. But secrets have a way of slipping into the wrong hands, especially when they look like headlines. A week after our courthouse wedding, Eli changed his profile picture. Just a photo of us standing under that old oak tree holding hands, rings visible, smiling like we had nothing left to prove. No caption, no announcement, just love. But love online is never just love. Within days, the image went viral. Again. The internet rediscovered us. This time with more venom. She's old enough to be his great-grandmother. This is what mental illness looks like. No woman that age should be wearing a wedding ring. He clearly has a fetish or a financial strategy. Even some of the kinder comments came laced with disbelief. This is sweet, I guess. To each their own, I guess. But you. Love wins, but therapy might help too. It should have crushed me. But it didn't. Not this time. Because while the world dissected our photo like it was a scandal, Eli and I were making breakfast. Laughing about burnt toast. Arguing about which shelf the coffee mugs belonged on. Living. I read some of the comments, yes. And some of them still hurt. But I realized something important that day. They were reacting to an image, not a life. They saw a wrinkle and a jawline, a birth date and a ring. They didn't see the nights we held each other through fear, the long talks about pain and healing, the quiet resilience it took to love each other in spite of the noise. People crave boxes, labels, categories, young with young, old with old. But love doesn't care about symmetry. It cares about connection. And they didn't have to understand that. Because we did. We do. So while the world argued over whether or not we were appropriate, Eli kissed me on the cheek, handed me coffee, and said, "You're trending again, Mrs. Reynolds." I laughed. "I'd rather just trend in your heart." He winked. "Too late. You went viral there a long time ago." I had always planned to leave quietly. Not dramatically, not tragically, just gently, like the closing pages of a well-worn book. I didn't want Eli to wake one day to a house full of silence and no answers. So I wrote a letter, tucked it inside an envelope marked, "For Eli, when you're ready." I kept it hidden in the drawer beside our bed, underneath a stack of old greeting cards and a pair of reading glasses I hadn't used in months. I don't know why I wrote it when I did. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was love, maybe it was both. But I wanted him to know when the time came that I hadn't just loved him. I had chosen him every single day. The letter was honest, gentle, a soft goodbye. I told him about the first moment I realized I was falling for him, when he handed me burnt toast and apologized like it was a crime. I told him that he gave me a second life in a world where I thought I only had memories left. I told him I wasn't afraid of dying anymore, because I had already lived more in 3 years with him than I had in 30 before. But he wasn't supposed to find it yet. That night, I was asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, when I woke to the sound of his voice. "Adeline." I opened my eyes. He was sitting on the floor, the letter in his hands, his shoulders shaking. "You weren't supposed to find that," I said, sitting up slowly. He looked at me, eyes brimming with tears. "I was looking for your heating pad," he whispered. And then I saw this. He held the letter like it was a piece of me already gone. I moved to the floor beside him. "I'm still here," I said. "I'm not leaving yet." He shook his head. "Don't write like that. Don't talk like we're running out of time." I smiled, brushing his hair from his face. "But we are Eli. Everyone is." He buried his head in my lap, and for the first time since I met him, he wept like a child. And I held him. Because what else can you do when the person you love most finally sees the hourglass you've tried so hard to turn upside down? I didn't promise him forever. I just promised him now. And he held me tighter, as if now was the most precious thing in the world. I don't know when my last day will come. But I do know this. I no longer fear it. Not because I'm brave, not because I'm ready, but because I've been loved truly fully without condition or apology. And that is a kind of immortality. The world saw a photo, a wrinkle beside youth, a headline begging for outrage, a love they didn't want to understand. But what they never saw was this: the mornings, when Eli would hand me coffee before I even opened my eyes, when he would kiss my shoulder and whisper, "I dreamed about you again." They didn't see the nights, the quiet ones when the pain in my joints flared, and he massaged my hands without saying a word. When he sat with me through panic attacks brought on by memories and grief too old to name. They never saw the laughter, the ridiculous inside jokes, the arguments over what constitutes too much garlic. The dance we invented in the kitchen during our second year of marriage, just ours, just silly. And they never saw me. Not the woman I used to be, not the girl I once was. But the soul beneath it, all the one Eli reached for, held, and never let go. And when I'm gone, people will talk. They'll still argue, still assume, still whisper that I was foolish or brave or both. Let them, because Eli will know. He'll remember the porch talks, the attic moments, the thunderstorm tea. He'll remember my laugh, how it cracked and rose like a bird trying to fly. He'll remember the way I looked at him, not as a savior, not as a prize, but as a man I chose every day I had breath. And I hope that when he looks back, he doesn't see a woman who was older. He sees the one who loved him best, without fear, without shame, with everything she had left. And maybe, just maybe, he'll still dance in the kitchen, even if it's alone, because love like this doesn't end. It echoes. And if you listen closely enough, in the quiet, in the in-between, you'll hear it too. Adeline wife, partner, believer in impossible things.